Hey, so great to see y'all. Is my microphone on? I got a new addition to the family. Welcome to the Cold Calling Podcast, Season 3, Episode number 12. Welcome to today, March the 27th. Hope you're having a great day. I'm your host, Larry Long Jr., CEO, that's Chief Energy Officer of LLJR Enterprise. Now, just a reminder that Monster Connect is powered by our great friends at the Cold Calling Podcast. I'm sorry. Woo! I'm getting too excited. The Cold Calling Podcast is sponsored by our friends at Monster Connect, leveraging technology to deliver you, B2B sellers with actual conversations. We want to talk to 8 to 12 decision makers every hour. We don't want to be getting these voicemails. And that's what Monster Connect does. Now, the Cold Calling Podcast, we're here to support you. We're hoping to provide you with sage insights that will take your game to that next level. And today we're in for a treat. Woo! This week's guest joining us from the Channel Islands of St. Peter Port, Guernsey, by way of Philly, by way of New York, by way of Seattle, by way of San Jose. I know she's in the green room saying, how does he remember all these things? You see, we first connected back in 2021. I think it was February 4th, but who's counting? She's an alum of the Drexel Dragons. Yeah, I think their mascot is Mario the Magnificent. She was a member of the string ensemble, a photography major. She's also the host of the live show Tea Time with Tech Marketing Leaders. I think that's TTW, TML. Oh, that's a whole bunch of initials. I had the recent privilege, the honor of joining her live show. She's the mother to, I think they're now 8-year-old twins, Elizabeth and Henry, King and Queen. She's a tech marketing genius and CEO of MKG Marketing. Put your hands together. For those that are joining live, for those that are checking out the replay, let's give it a warm Cold Calling Podcast to our guest, Kerry. Welcome, Kerry.
Oh, Larry, so good to see you. I need to take that intro and now have it be like my intro from now until the end of time. So thank you for such a warm welcome. It's so good to see you.
Oh, likewise. It's been a hot minute, but we are here. I like to get started. I know who you are. I know how great you are, but our viewers and our listeners want to know, who are you? So I call this the who, the what, and the why. Who are you? What do you do? And why do you do it, Kerry?
I am Kerry Gard. I'm the CEO, as Larry mentioned, of MKG Marketing, which is a digital marketing agency that specializes in SEO and digital ads primarily for complex brands in the B2B tech space. So cybersecurity, SaaS, data management platforms. They have a tough thing to sell, and they have an even tougher job of trying to sell it to an audience that is very technical and sees us as a necessary evil. So it's a tough market out there, and we're here to help. That is who I am and what I do. Why do I do it? I do it because I really truly believe in the human and the people first element. It started with our company taking care of our employees back in 2011 when we first created our values. It was really about making sure that our employees had a good work-life balance, that they had the benefits they needed, and that they really loved the work that they did. And then that extended down into our clients, and now it's extending further even all the way out to their buyers and making sure that we're giving their buyers the best customer journey that's very human-centered. So that's why I do what I do.
Wow, I love that. And I love how you pointed out that it starts with your employees, and then it trickles to your clients, and then it trickles to your clients' clients. Yes. That's absolutely amazing. I've had experiences, and I think some people can relate. Some people might be in that boat now where their employer, their organization doesn't really value the employee, that person. You called it the human element. Wow, that's powerful right there. Where did that come from? Why is that your approach to be human centric on your employees first?
I think because I lived in places where I wasn't. So, having grown up in the agency world, um, being very, very capable, it's sort of a blessing and a curse when you show up very capable because they give you more and more and more. And I was seen as a cog in a machine that I could be replaced, right? And so it was just a very grueling life to live. And I knew that with wanting a family, myself, knowing the values that I wanted for the company I wanted to be working for, I decided to go out there and create it rather than trying to find it. So yeah, that's where it comes from. I lived
Wow.
it.
Wow, I love it. Love it. Well, welcome, welcome, welcome. Let's get the cat out of the bag. There's no need to beat around the bush. Let's get to it. Now, I understand a little birdie on the streets. I think it was you. You told me that, hey, I think that cold calling is dead. Wow, what a warm welcome to the Cold Calling Podcast. And I know that you shared. You didn't just say it. You doubled down, you tripled down, you quadrupled down.
I
That
did.
when it comes to B2B audiences, especially the more technical
Mhm.
industries, cold outreach is dead. Oh, hold up, wait a minute. What you talking about, Willis? Woo! I got some microphones for you to share. What you talking about, Kerry? Where does this come from? And
Oh,
tell me more.
it comes from the buyers. It comes from the buyers. They and the data, right? So the buyers have been very clear. There's a wonderful podcast by Danny Wolf where she has cybersecurity practitioners on her show to tell her what marketing is doing wrong. And so many of those folks are saying, please stop cold pitch slapping me. They hate it. So it's coming from the buyers. It's also coming from the data. I have a good friend who's in sales and he's trying to drum up business on the more technical cybersecurity marketing side, and his numbers are dwindling in terms of how many calls he needs to make in order to get somebody even on the phone. So it's not that I'm just pulling this out of a hat and making a comment. I'm listening. I'm listening to what's happening around me, and I'm saying, more importantly, what are we going to do about it? Because it's not to say sales is going away. Sales is still very important. It's just the role it plays has to be so much more intentional than it's no longer a numbers game. And in cybersecurity, specifically in the B2B tech space, when you're looking at these very tight knit industries, your audience isn't infinite like on the B2C side, right? It's finite and you can't burn those bridges by playing the numbers game. So we just have to switch. We have to roll with the times, Larry, and roll with our audience and what they're saying and listen to them. Do better.
Wow, that's deep right there. And I was taking some notes. So I guess my first question is, what do you think we should do about it if the data is showing that cold outreach isn't as effective as it used to be? And if
Mm-hmm.
the anecdotal evidence from the buyers is that, hey, I don't like the cold outreach, you called it cold pit slap.
Yeah. It's pitch
Yeah.
slapping. Yeah. It's terrible.
What do
Yeah.
we do?
It's about relationship building, right? So marketing has to do their job and it has to be more than MQLs. It does have to start with the leads. It has to start with brand, right? So you build the brand, you get your name out there, then you give value back to your audience and helping them make a decision and solve their problems and bring them in the door and say, we can help you. And here's all of the information to support you in making this really tough decision and laddering us up against competitors and all those things that you have to make decisions on. And then here's a free trial, here's a demo, let me show you the thing and show you it's real and it works. And then comes the time of when they'll raise their hand and say, okay, I'm ready to talk to sales and have a conversation. In the meantime, I think sales can look at this from an account-based marketing standpoint of like, okay, let's look in Salesforce, let's see who's active, who's on our pages, who's looking up information, what questions they might have, and then let me see if I can reach out to them and just see how I can help, right? So it becomes more of a not let me tell you who we are and what we do from a cold standpoint, but hey, I see you're active here. I see this matters to you. I just want you to know I'm here for you. Like, happy to have a conversation, happy to answer any of your questions, happy to support you, right? It's just a shift from that cold outreach that here's who we are, this is all about us, this is about me, to okay, I'm listening to the data, I'm seeing what's coming in. Now let me figure out how to be a partner to these folks to help them make the decision that's right for them.
Wow, that's powerful. That's powerful and very, very interesting. Now, my mind is spinning. Oh, it's spinning right here. Do you believe what these prospects are saying? And the reason why I ask, has there ever been a time where folks were saying, hey, bring it on, I really want the cold pitch slap? Has that ever been the case, or is it just now folks are being more vocal? I'm curious. Do you believe the hype?
I think we're finally asking the question. I think we're finally actually sitting down with our buyers and asking them what's working, what's not, what do you prefer? I don't think that we've ever really I think we've been looking at the data to say our numbers are dwindling and this is getting harder. Why? And I think we're doing a better job of listening versus just relying on doing more of the same. So yeah, I don't know that it's necessarily hype. I think it's just I think this has always been the case. I don't know about you, Larry, but like I don't like cold outreach. I tend to ignore it. I don't want to pick up my phone to a number I don't recognize. That's uncomfortable. My email box is swimming in just stuff that I have to weed through to get to the important client messages that I need to be responding to. I don't want it in my inbox. I immediately unsubscribe. The worst is when you end up on somebody's newsletter that you didn't even like subscribe to, right? So I think we're just now putting our foot down about like what we as buyers will tolerate and won't tolerate. And we have the technology now, right, to filter out, to set spams, to ad block, right? So if we keep on this same track, our buyers are going to continue to find those ways to ignore us, and it's going to be that much harder to get our products in the hands of people to help them do their jobs better.
I love it. And it is noisy out there. When I look at my email box, Houston, we have a problem.
Yes, sir.
I'm curious, what's your definition of sales? If you were to, if someone came and said, Kerry, I've never heard of this thing you call sales, how do you describe it to them?
In a perfect world, I think it has a lot of different meanings these days. It's been broken down into so many different avenues in terms of roles and responsibilities, from SDRs to BDRs to, you name it. There's a whole bunch enablement. There's lots of different sales things out there now. But at the core of what sales is doing is they're there to help a customer make a purchase decision.
Okay.
At its core. So
I love it. And then I'm curious, because you're in the marketing space, how do you define marketing?
Marketing is to build that bridge between the customer and the brand. And so to get the name out there, to make it recognizable, memorable, and to add value into, put the buying power sort of back into the hands of the customer to be able to make a thoughtful decision, I think is how it's shifted. And I think it depends on what industry you're in. B2C is very different than B2B, but I think from a B2B perspective, it's definitely shifted to a more value proposition of making sure that we're creating the right content, that we're showing up in social and SEO the right way to, again, facilitate that decision-making process, ultimately making sales jobs easier.
I like to hear that. Ooh, easier. You're making my ears tingle. Now, I love that you talked about the social aspect, and I'm going to put out there what I think. And we talked about this on your live podcast. I'm a big believer that cold outreach isn't dead. And the data I'm seeing from Monster Connect which is all about cold phone outreach, the numbers that we see is that we are making connections, we are having conversations, we are bringing value, and we're getting deals. The numbers don't lie. I think they told me when I played baseball, they said, Larry, what's your batting average? How many stolen bases? How many RBIs? The numbers don't lie. So I don't have it broken down by industries. It sounds like you're getting data from cybersecurity, but I'm a big believer that cold outreach is one of the avenues to be able to hit our prospects. And cold outreach done bad is super naughty. For those folks that are doing it bad, pitch slapping, making it all about you, survey says, nah. But my definition of sales is twofold. Number one, I think it's a transfer of energy. You're transferring that belief in your solution. Number two, you're playing matchmaker. You're matching whatever you have, a product, a service, a thought, an idea, with someone else's problems, their needs, their challenges, their hopes, their dreams, their aspirations. And that comes from the conversation. Now, whoo, there's a lot to unpack right there. A lot to unpack. I love that you talked about the relationship building. Definitely believe that. I love how you talked about the brand. And I really love how you talked about staying focused on solving problems. Now, are there times, and I'm not an expert in cybersecurity, are there times where folks have a problem and they don't even realize it?
Yeah, and I think that's where marketing comes in, to be able to get that word out there, to say that's category building, right? So a lot of the times marketing has to do this really hard thing where it has to actually create a space. It's like I always come back to Apple because it's easy, right? So when Apple does this all the time, constant category creation, right? They came out with a VR headset. It's called a spade. It's a VR headset. But the way that the VR headset functions different to all the other VR headsets is that they defined it as spatial computing, because you can still see what's happening around you, and it's acting as just an extension of your computer versus being in a video game or an immersive environment where you can't see what's happening around you, right? So Apple has created this category around spatial computing where you basically wear glasses as a computer all day and you can still function and walk around your space and have conversations. I think that's where they're trying to go. But the point is it's that category creation. So what you're talking about, Larry, is this idea of people defining a new problem. Nope, the problem probably hasn't changed, but a new solution to an existing problem. And it's very hard to create a brand new category because you have to, if you're using SEO and search as an example, right? People aren't searching for the keywords around this thing yet. So you really have to think about the problem and define it to its core and then present this solution as a new way that they hadn't considered before. And it pays out in dividends in the long run. But it's a huge climb to get up that mountain initially.
Oh, big time, big time. Now, it got me thinking, because most of our audience, they're BDRs, SDRs, they're hammering the phone, they're hammering email, they're hammering social. And we've had the conversation. I've got a list here of ways to connect with potential buyers, whether it's phone calls, emails, billboards, physical billboards, digital billboards, PR, publicity, podcasts, hosting a podcast and guesting on a podcast, social media, TV, radio, handwritten notes, conferences, referrals and references, attending meetings, recommendations, thought leadership, speaking on stages, writing articles, publishing books, blogs, content, in communities. When you hear about all these different avenues to possibly reach our prospects, what do you tell the person that's sitting there right now that's tasked with making 50 calls, 100 calls every day? Do you tell them to just stop? Hey, put down the phone, throw it away, and do this? What's your advice to them?
I'm more curious about what your answer would be, considering I feel like you've sort of cracked the code on this. So I'm going to use you as an example. I think I think it's the variety aspect, and I think it's also leaning into your superpower, right? So you're a great example of this, Larry, where you're not sitting behind the phone making those 50 calls. You got out on the speaker circuit, you hosting a podcast. You're leaning into your own energy of being able to be an influencer and connect with people in a really intentional way. And I think you need to marry those things. It needs to not just be about what is it that I should be doing, but more about what do I want to be doing and what am I good at? And at the end of the day, how am I going to get in front of my prospects to have a conversation? I think events are a great way, whether you're on stage or whether you're in the crowd and you're able to really rub elbows and make connections and be memorable because you connected about your favorite TV show versus trying to sell them something, right? That's where the magic happens with sales, I think, is in those. I was just actually talking to my coach about this because I'm his marketing coordinator. And we were just talking about the one thing that's so hard to translate on the website that I can't do. It's literally impossible. Is that he's able to close a sale because of the conversation that he can have with people around the impact he can make. And it's not just the words he's saying, it's the way he says them. It's his inflection, it's his passion, it's the I'm here. He does all this active listening up front to really understand where people are. And then he responds with, okay, here's how I would approach that. Here's how I'd work with you. And here's how I want to help make your life better, right? And so I cannot translate that onto a website. So how are you going to take that magic that happens in that one-on-one space, that connection that you create from that human place, and how are you bring that into the real world? Where are you going to find your prospects and where is that going to happen? I think is what you should be thinking about internally. And is it happening over the phone?
Wow, wow. I love that right there. The variety aspect and taking, I think, like you said earlier, the human element. When I think about B2B, and I got this from KD, Kevin Dorsey, it's not business to business. It is belly to belly. Those relationships, those connections, those conversations are super important. So I appreciate you sharing that, Kerry. And for my folks that are grinding on the phone, make those genuine, true connections. Because I still believe that folks buy from those that they know, that they like, that they trust, and that they believe in. And the phone is one way. The email is another. Social media is another. Referrals. Who does Kerry know? Where are my people at? What conferences do I go to? I absolutely love it. Kerry, you made a point that I want to highlight when you said active listening, and you were sharing the example of your coach. For those out there, I don't care how many mics you have. I think I've got 8 or 9 of them. It doesn't matter because it's not about you. It's about your prospect. So make sure that you're listening. Sometimes we got to be quiet, ask those right questions, and listen to learn so that we can then solve problems. I'm going to take a little pause. I'm going to take a little breather, because this is what I call spill the tea. You live in St. Peter Port, Guernsey, and I know you've been around Philly, New York, Seattle, San Jose. First of all, I want to know, where is St. Peter Port, Guernsey? How did you arrive, and what are the best parts? I know I just threw three questions on it, but I'm curious. Tell me more.
So Guernsey is part of the Channel Islands in between England and France. It's closer to France, so all of our street names are in French, but it acknowledges the monarchy, and so everybody's British accents. And but it's its own country, so it has its own rules and laws. They tend to align with the UK, but it's still its own entity, which is interesting. I ended up here because my husband grew up here, and when COVID hit, Guernsey's a 9-mile wide island, and it shut its borders and said, if you're coming into the island, you have to quarantine for 2 weeks. And so after 30 days, Guernsey was COVID free, essentially. And we have kids and they were 4 going on 5, and in the UK, in Guernsey, you start school at 4 going on 5 versus the US, which is 5 going on 6. So we had sort of a tough decision to make of our kids can start school, they can go to school normally. My husband really, 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 really didn't want to move back here. It's how I feel about my hometown. I love Philly, but the hometown I grew up in, Springfield, I was very adamant about never going back there. And so I really felt for him of like how hard this must be. But he made a tough call for his family, and we're better for it. We had 2 years. We had COVID bounce in and out, but for the most part, we lived a very normal life and a very safe one. And we did that for our kids, and I'm grateful for the opportunity. So yeah, that's how we ended up here.
Wow,
The
that is
best parts,
awesome.
the best parts of Guernsey. Um, it's got amazing beaches, especially in the summer. There's one called Vazon Bay. It's my absolute favorite. The water just brilliant blue when the sun is out. It's absolutely gorgeous. There's an 800-year-old castle here that's so cool to go visit and see the history. And Guernsey was actually occupied during World War II, so it's got a ton of World War II history in regards to the occupation and what people went through. And it's just brought a very real part of that history to life for me, where in the US we were a bit, um, we don't have the same aspect, right? So we were a bit walled off from it, and it's very real here.
Wow, wow. 800-year castle, life's a beach. I can work on my tan, and then the
Oh
history of the occupation. Parlez-vous français?
no. Un petit peu. Très mal.
Do people speak French or no? It's mostly just the British accents.
Mostly British accents. There was a language here a long time ago called Guernseys, and so there are some people who will like go to cafes and sit and speak sort of this French. Um, it sounds very French. It's not, but it's got a little French twang to it. That's really nice to listen to.
Wow, wow. You've been on quite the journey. And you mentioned it before that you were part of the agency world. I checked the Carfax and I see early 2000s. You had an internship with DKNY.
I did.
Do tell, how was that experience?
Ah, you ever had like a part of your life you'd love to go like revisit? Like you don't want to change anything, and maybe you just want to be a fly on the wall and like just sort of watch your younger self go through this thing. That is definitely one of those times I would absolutely venture back to. It was awesome. I interned for the in-house stylist at DKNY, so I helped curate all of the clothes for all the photo shoots, and I helped find all the models. And I had to be on a train. I commuted from Princeton, New Jersey, where my uncle lived. So I lived with my uncle and my cousins and my aunt, and I commuted to New York every day, which was definitely a hard 6 months. I mean, I would be gone from 7 a.m. to 7, 8 p.m. But I absolutely, absolutely loved it. I learned a lot about anticipation. So I figured my boss out, and I figured out what he needed or what order of operations that he sort of like expected things to happen in, and then I just slotted in and I figured it out. And then he whenever he needed something, I remember he was sitting next to Donna Karen, and he was helping pin a dress, and I was there I knew what he needed. I knew that they were going to need shoes at some point, and I was just there to make sure he had it, like he could just show off to Donna. And yeah, it was pretty awesome. It was.
That's a great lesson right there of playing chess, thinking each step, 7 steps ahead, I think they say, and that anticipation. Ooh, that's strong. Now, for those that are early in their career, might be wondering, wow, is this really my passion? Any advice that you would give to them? Because I know that you've had a diverse experience and professionally. What advice would you give to those early in career folks that are pondering, is sales for me? Maybe I want to go into marketing. I want to be like Kerry, MKG.
Yeah, man. I think that's the beauty of sales. the beauty of our collective industry really is how malleable it is of taking your skills and finding a new thing. There's so many pockets between product, marketing, sales, success, that it's really leaning into what you love to do. Thinking about what fills your cup and what gives you energy, right? I loved photography. I went to school for photography. I loved being behind the camera. I loved taking photos, but I did not have the acumen to go find the business to actually build the business and get it going. And so I couldn't do it. And that's okay. And instead I took those skills and I went into marketing. And the beautiful thing about marketing, very similar to photography, is the dichotomy of creativity and science. And so I was able to think very creatively in problem solving for marketing, but I could also tie it back to the data and make sure that my decisions that I was making creatively were in line with what was happening, historically. And so I think whatever your core is of what you're great at, whether it's sales, whether it's connections, whether it's getting out there and talking to people, I think, again, Larry, come back to you, man, because you're such a great example of all this, of figuring out what you're great at and then tying that back to sales of what you love doing and then getting out there and just making it happen, right? So I think that if you're more of an introvert and you're finding yourself in the sales side, that might be really hard. That might be really draining. You might be great at it, but that doesn't mean you come home at the end of the day and you want to crawl into bed because you're exhausted, right? So how can you take that energy of understanding how sales works, but being a bit of an introvert and maybe going over to the marketing side where you don't have to call people, but you can think like a customer, right? That's incredibly valuable. So yeah, I think about what fills your cup, gives you energy, what you love to do, and then get after it.
Oh, I love it. Get after it. Yeah, for those listening, for those viewing, get after it. Let's go. Now, you slipped it into the conversation early, in the middle, and we're going to go to it right now. Data. And I know you've been posting recently. I looked at some of your recent posts on LinkedIn.
Stalking me.
Yeah, don't tell nobody else. Talking about the importance of data. I'm curious, what are your thoughts around data as well as around this thing that's all the talk of the town? I am ChatGPT AI. What are your thoughts, Kerry?
Two different conversations. So let's talk about data first. The thing about data is it's all well and good if you're looking at the right data. There's too much out there now. And so we got to parse through it and we got to do it really thoughtfully. And, as wonderful as new MarTech is, I think that nothing replaces the Excel sheet and a good pivot table. Download those CSVs, get to the raw data, and then cut it left, right, and center to really understand what is happening and why it is happening. A dashboard can help guide you on what data you should go be looking at, but we can't just make decisions based off of a pretty chart. And I think we've gotten a little complacent thanks to that. So I love living in the data. I think that's where we make all of our decisions, because what happens is when you get really comfortable with the data, you can start making decisions faster because you can anticipate where things are going to go just based off of your intuition at that point. So yeah, I'm a big believer, but then I also believe you can go on gut once you have a really good understanding of things end to end, and then you can go faster and then check the data, make sure you're right, and iterate as you go. But yeah, I think it all has to stem back. It's historical information, right? So let's not reinvent the wheel. Let's look at what's possible, what needs to happen, and prioritize and go. Yeah, data.
Oh, I love that right there. Break down the data. Let's get raw in the data to understand not only what is happening, but why it's happening, and then thinking ahead. Ooh, a strong pivot table. You're giving me the chills. Me and Excel don't get along, but I guess that's why I do what I do and you do what you do.
Sir, that's right.
Getting into the data. I love it. Now, and you mentioned, it sounds like with the data, you've got the science, which allows you to apply the art, that gut feel of what's
Mm-hmm.
going on, combining both art and
Absolutely.
science. On a different note, talk to me about your thoughts around generative AI. I can't
AI.
even spell generative. That's a big
Yeah.
word, but this chat GPT, as well as all the other solutions,
Yeah.
quote unquote, that are out there leveraging AI.
So AI is not coming for our jobs. It's not going to replace us. It's not. However, if you don't figure out how to use it, you might get left behind. So I think it's really important to understand the technology because it's not going anywhere. It's kind of like when the iPhone showed up, right? And touchscreens showed up, right? You had to figure. I do know a person or two maybe who still have flip phones. Um, I know, and they still text with the keypad. It's magical. I do miss the keypad. I was an amazing texter with that thing. But at the end of the day, we had to figure out this is the iPhone came and it wasn't going away, and it spearheaded the rest of the industry, right? And that's what's happening right now. AI is not going away, and the faster we figure out how best to use it to make our jobs easier, the better we can keep up with it in the long run. And so I think it's really important to not look at it as a replacement, but an and. It's like the calculator, right? Like people were doing huge math equations on paper, or they were using, those abacuses, right? And then the calculator came along. It didn't replace the fact that they were doing hard calculations. It just helped them do it faster. And so this is the same idea. We can't use it to replace the fact that we have to write. It should not do the writing solely for you. If you are creating a prompt and then taking that prompt right out of ChatGPT and placing it into an email, you are going to get spotted a mile away. Don't do that. But I appreciate writing on a blank page is really hard. So if you need like an initial setup to like get something on paper and then to riff with, that's a great way to do it. The other way I use it, and it's worked really handy with my clients, is to capture their voice. So my clients write all the time, all over social media, newsletters, whatever. I take all of that, I dump it in ChatGPT, I call it voice of so-and-so. And then if I need content, that's where I start. I say, I need a newsletter about this topic in this person's voice. And then they'll give me an initial script that I can look at. I also think the other way that AI is really helping me from a podcasting standpoint, you probably have this too, Larry, is the transcript. Transcripts are amazing. From an SEO standpoint, transcripts are fantastic. People aren't going to sit there and read the transcript, but it helps Google understand what the podcast is about because Google isn't listening to the show, but it can read the page and it can rank things accordingly, right? So I think there are ways that it's enhanced our jobs, from making it easier to get started to using our clients' voices to then also doing a better job of, helping SEO and marketing understand like what it is we do and why we do it and why people should care about what we do.
I love it. So the robots aren't coming for our jobs, and opportunity is knocking at the door for us to leverage to help us elevate. I've got two more questions for you. Talk to me about the future. I know that you shared times are changing. We're asking the right questions and we're hearing from our prospects that, hey, what might have worked in the past might not be working today. What are your thoughts kind of 3 years down the road from a sales and marketing perspective, specifically within the industries that you live within? What's on the horizon?
Relationship building.
Ooh, wee. Say that a little bit louder for the people in the back.
Relationship building. It's just where it's all going to come down to, from communities to events. It's all coming down to in person and meeting people. I think it's a reflection of COVID times, of being so isolated for so long, and now us really wanting that human connection and the sense of belonging, and trust. I think people have lost trust in marketing and sales, and so they want to hear from their peers of like what tools they should be using or what products they should be buying, and that's where community plays a really significant role. So I think we have to figure out how to work to build those communities in a really thoughtful way, support those communities, and then when they're asking the right questions of what they need, figuring out how to bring that value in to see if you're the right product for them. It all comes down at the end of the day of like, we just can't push anymore. We have to just present as much information as we have, show value to our customers, listen to what they need, and then if we're the right fit, they'll make that decision or not. And that's up to them ultimately.
Wow, that is powerful. And that leads into my final question for you. What's your best and biggest piece of advice for business owners? If I'm a business owner right now, and I'm trying to figure this all out, this changing landscape, I hear you on the relationships, the communities, the events, the in-person, the connection, the trust. What's your best piece of advice that you give me to do right now today? As I'm listening to this, what action should I take? Once I hang up on this episode, what action should I take?
As a business owner, which is a very different, I want to be clear, this is a very different role and responsibility. Two things for business owners. One is be true to you. Why did you start this thing? You had a problem and you wanted to solve it. And that's why you did the thing that you did. And hold on to that and bring that through your marketing and tell that story. Be true to why you started this thing to begin with. And then get out there and talk about it. Whether that's, you are your first sales and marketing hire. I hate to break it to you, but you are your first sales and marketing hire, and you have to get out there and you got to spread the word. So whether it's like we've talked about, from events to picking up the phone and starting some conversations to working your network, it comes down to you to start with. So just got to get out there and see how your product resonates with your potential buyer and if they are having the same problem that you had and that you sought out to solve.
Wow, that's powerful. For all those listening, and when I say business owner, it's not just the entrepreneurs in the traditional sense. If you're an SDR, a BDR, an account executive, enterprise account executive, a team leader, you're an entrepreneur, you're a business owner, because you better own your business. And as Kerry said, be true to you. What's your why? I'm no Simon Sinek, but why did you get into the work that you're getting into? Let's stay centered. And then I love how Kerry talked about go out, get out, spread the words. In the words of the great philosopher Bob Marley, get up, stand up, and shout it out. People need to hear about you. Yeah, the events, the phone calls, the conversations, working your network. Your network is your net worth. It's not what you know, and it's not even who you know. It's who knows you, who likes you, who trusts you, who believes in you, that makes it all happen. So go out and get it done right now. Kerry, where can people connect with you?
LinkedIn. Come hang out. Love to connect. Let's do it.
Oh, I love it. Make sure that you connect with Kerry. On behalf of Monster Connect, on behalf of our viewers and our listeners, Kerry, thank you, thank you, thank you.
Thank you.
Absolute pleasure. Hey, remember, join us next Wednesday, April the 3rd. Same bad place, same bad time. Actually, it won't be the same bad place because we're going to be live and in person. So 1 o'clock Eastern, 10 o'clock Pacific, we're going to welcome the dynamic Daniel McCauley, who's going to be joining us in person. For any of my peeps out there, if you're in the Raleigh, Durham, Chapel Thrill, the Triangle area, please shoot me a message if you want to join us in the live audience. Please make sure to connect with Kerry. Please make sure that we support Kerry and everything that MKG Marketing is doing. And we will see you on the flip side next week. Happy selling. Bye for now.